Get Dennis on a rant, and there you go.
I'm sorry, guys.
Well, I just got back from getting coffee, so good morning, everybody. Good to see you.
Good morning,
Good
everybody.
morning.
Steve wasn't supposed to be here, but he is here for a little bit. He's looking like a movie star driving a bus or something. I don't know what that is. But anyway, I ought to make him do the rundown in the chat, right? While he's driving.
I'm thinking that the state of Washington or Oregon or wherever he happens to be would have laws against that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. Yeah.
I guess
Steve, by the way, Steve, I'm going to mute you for just a minute.
I'm guessing that noise is from Steve.
Yeah, it's from the bus. Yeah.
Your window open? All right.
Anyway, so what do you guys want to do? Tell us who's here in chat.
Sure. I'll do it. Good morning, everybody. Let me get my thing over here. Hold on. There we go. We got John Dawson, Mama Son's Trains, Bernard, C, Lynn McCurdy, Gerald Stewart, Eagle River Valley, John, Chris Brew. That's Steve's buddy, Chris Brew. Chuck CDP. CB and Q, Mark over there. Who else? Daniel Banks, Steve Childers, Delmarva Transportation fan, Curly Express, DES Multimedia, the Media Productions, Dave, HO Scale Steel Mill. I don't know his first
That's
name.
one I don't really recognize.
I've seen him before, but I don't know his first name. And Otter Creek and Rio Grande. I think that's about it.
Delmarva Transportation fan?
Yeah, that's he changes his name all the time. Jeff. That's Jeff.
Jeff, okay. Well,
Jeff
Lynn
Pike.
asked, he says he didn't see Wild Bill. Well, Wild Bill is having a wild time at a community party. He said that there was too much good food and too loud of music to be on the show. So he'll try and catch us next week. But Steve's here for a little while anyway. So anyway, we got us. You know, what else could you want?
Mr. Bus Driver, I gotta pee.
Oh, mercy. Steve might be here next week, and I don't know if Brian's come in. Brian, if you're here, I don't see him in chat. But anyway, we might have Brian Jones on next week from Iron Horse.
Cool.
I'll have to get with him and see if he can do it next week. Steve thinks he'll be here. He's not completely sure, but he thinks he will be. Anyway, we were having a good discussion, Dennis, Jerry, and I, about the dual turnouts, the dual gauge turnouts, and what you can do with them and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was pretty good info. I don't know how many guys out there are going to be doing anything like that, but it's pretty interesting railroading stuff. Are those talking about diverging narrow gauge or standard gauge off from a dual gauge track? And there's some things you have to take into consideration. And Steve, Dennis, once you grab that jig, and I kind of showed this on my channel. Oh God, years ago. I say years ago, quite a few years ago, when I was building them, and I ran into the same problem of having to have both jigs of the narrow gauge on a particular side, because when you turn them around to do a crossover, it swaps the. Do you have the other jig there?
No, I could get it. It'd take me a second. I've got the bucket down here.
Well, it's easier to show is the only thing. Oh, excuse me.
Are the dual gauge jigs, I would have guessed, are more money than the regular?
No, they're not really.
No.
They were usually the jigs, at least when I bought mine, the turnouts were almost all the same cost.
Yeah.
You didn't go up in cost until you got an oddball
Right.
one, and then they didn't go up that much because it's basically the same process for them.
Let me get a piece of dual gauge track.
Okay. Because they use the same process, I'm sure, and the only thing they're putting in is the computer program that tells the CNC machine what to cut out.
Yeah.
So now I know the bigger ones. I think the larger scales are more, but then you've got more material there because that's a pretty thick aluminum sheet they put that on.
Sure.
And it's a relatively hard aluminum. I'm not sure what grade it is, but it's fairly hard aluminum. It's not soft. Because if it was soft, you'd wear it out too fast.
Yeah.
But
those look like they're a lot nicer than those alternatives, the composite ones or something.
oh yeah, Steve had gotten some of the composites, and he said, yeah, those they wear out a little faster because they're softer material.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, so it's kind of mirror imaged, I think. So I might mess up the actual of how this works, but so you've got dual gauge on the right, so as you're going down the rails, the narrow gauge is sharing the right hand rail with the standard gauge, so you're running on the right. So make sure I'm looking at this the right way. Your jig is going to line up properly with this as it interfaces with it. So coming from the other direction,
Yeah, I
you're
see what
just
you're
the
talking about.
exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
So you have one of two options. You have to have a different jig for, because you're 180 degrees out, or you can also bring over your narrow gauge on the right and move it to the left. So, but that only works, some of the time. Like Claude mentioned, that if you're doing a crossover, you have to have both jigs because you're crossing over, and then that would be really fun. I haven't even considered doing one of those yet, but I might.
That's got to be great.
They're not hard. They're like doing a regular crossover. You just have to have both jigs so that you've got the narrow gauge on the proper side when it flips around.
Yeah.
Have you done one, Claude?
Oh yeah.
If I can.
Yeah, I've done some on mine. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, slide it up some more. There you go.
Yeah.
So if you've got the bottom one on the left and the top one on the right, see those narrow gauges are on opposite sides. If you flip them back around the other way, one's on the left and one's on the right. But when you go butt to butt, on a crossover, you have to have both of those so that they line up properly.
And like, what I'm doing for my hidden staging for the standard gauge, I've only got, I didn't really have enough room, because if you're going to cross over from, bring the narrow gauge from the right to the left, that really needs to be a straight length of track. Maybe you could do it on a slight curve depending on your skills, but I didn't have enough room to bring it over. And so I'm going to need both of those jigs to do what I'm doing, because it's not feasible for me to cross over from right to left with the narrow gauge without, creating a turnout, I guess.
And I think I still have. I bought one of those transition tracks from Shinohara, I think.
I've seen one for sale. The amount of money that they wanted for it was like, are you kidding me?
I bought mine.
I can do that. I can do that with scraps.
Yeah.
and literally
I bought mine
to nothing.
Yeah, I bought mine for about $10 years ago, just in case I needed it, but it only goes from one side to the other. Now, when you flip it around, it goes opposite of that, but, it only works if you only need one, and you have, like you said, have the room to do that.
Yeah.
But you really don't need it. I mean, I'm crossing over dual gauge. Like if you go from my cattle pens into the yard, narrow gauge yard on the bottom level, and then back out to go up the mountain, you're crossing over 2 tracks of dual gauge track, or a standard track, which makes it dual gauge by the time you cross over. So it's doable, very easily doable. I did it. So if I did it, and anybody can do it, all you have to do is pay attention to where, like I was telling you earlier, where your frogs are, so you get your guardrails in the right place. And you can kind of think through that kind of stuff and get it to work. That's the nice thing about building your own turnouts. You can do some really wacky looking stuff once you get the basics down on what you're doing with the turnout. So I liked it because I could get creative with the turnout. And I don't know if we lost Dennis completely. I guess we did. He locked up.
He's locked up. He's in a perpetual drinking mode.
I think he locked up when I said making crazy track with it. Once you learn how to do it, it froze his mind or something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's the neat thing about learning how to make those, and you don't have to have fast tracks, jigs, and stuff to do it. Jason with Train Freak he did a multi turnout curved yard lead on just the templates.
The paper?
A lot of people build them just on templates, so they can be done that way. It's probably a little bit harder to do because if you don't have the filing tool and stuff like that you get from fast tracks, which makes it easy, you put the rail in, it gives you the right angle to file it at. So then when you go to put it together, it's there. If you're doing it by hand, it's more hit and miss on how it goes together. So there's a little more work involved. But then the fast track stuff, especially now, is not cheap. I don't recommend people get it just to get one. I would only suggest you do it if you're going to have 20 or more of a particular turnout. Of course, I don't know what the commercial turnouts cost now. I haven't bought one in forever.
Well, the HO Walters ones are about $28 a piece.
For a regular turnout?
Like a number 6, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, yeah, so if you got 10 of those, that's $280, right?
Yeah.
Well, your jig's not going to cost you that much. Now you have other stuff to have to buy, like your copper clad ties and stuff like that you solder your rail to, and then you got to buy the rail. But once you get over 10 turnouts, you're probably getting into where you can save money building your own. But the big advantage is being able to do stuff different.
Right.
So you could take that number 6 turnout, instead of having a straight diverging leg, you could actually have it curve a lot quicker. Right. If you wanted to do it that way.
Yeah.
See, I took one of my three-way turnout jigs, and I made Ys with it. Just left out the center section. So it actually made 2 different kinds of turnouts. It made a Y and a 3-way turnout.
Yeah.
And so they can be very versatile if you just sit down and look at it a little bit and kind of figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I think this was like $28.
Yeah, see, they used to be, not that long ago, they were what, $10, $12, something like that? Maybe more than that. I didn't buy very many of those. So,
yeah.
But back in the day, the Atlas Snap Track switches were, I didn't think they were cheap either. They were pretty much, in today's money, they weren't very much. But
yeah,
back then, as a kid, when you have limited funds, it's a lot more. But if you have a lot of turnouts to do,
sure,
fast tracks or some other method like that of building your own is a much better
Yeah, like on my little switching layout, I think I'm gonna have like 7
Yeah. So
turnouts.
it's not worth it to buy a jig to do that unless you just wanted to, but you're going to end up paying more.
Yeah, 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 sure.
But it is fun to do if you like the construction end of it, which I do. That's why I model stuff. That's why I modeled airplanes. I liked building them better than I did flying them.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the hands-on part of it that I like the most, and I like to get creative with it if I can. Make stuff. When I was doing airplanes, it was make stuff look like something that, I'd be in the hardware store in the specialty drawers looking for stuff, and the guy'd come and say, "What do you need?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll know it when I see it."
Yeah.
Because I'm going to make something out of that. So
Yeah.
I was trying to find something that I knew I could do something to it and make it look like something else. And to me, that was the fun part of it. I'm not watching chat at all.
Yeah. We're just talking about some turnouts. Like somebody had said, Pico N scale turnouts are $20. Yeah, they're $20
Yeah.
for little.
Well, even at $20, if you got 10 of them, that's $200.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can get one of the jigs for less than that. I'm pretty sure I haven't priced them in a while.
Yeah.
Especially since prices have all gone up. But I don't think they're $200.
It just definitely depends on what you want. If you don't mind building them, it's not worth it for a couple.
And if it's not a bad thing to buy one if you like doing that sort of thing.
Yeah,
buy them and sell them.
Yeah.
Buy the jigs and build them and sell them.
Sell turnouts.
Yeah, and make some of your money back. So
Yeah.
there's ways to get there, but to me it's a much better deal if you've got a relatively large layout and going to have a lot of turnouts. It's a cheaper way of going than buying them commercially. And there again, you can tweak them to what you want. And of course, it's not just Fast Tracks. There's Oak Hill has got templates too. I've not looked into his, but his stuff that he's got on his website is just really nice.
Yeah.
And he's in the States, so you don't have that Canadian shipping price that you have coming from Fast Tracks.
Oh, Fast Tracks is in Canada.
Yeah, they're just east, I think, of Detroit area. So what is that? Ottawa?
Something like that, I guess.
I'm not sure. Anyway, they're up that place somewhere.
Dennis lost electricity.
Uh-oh. Well, there you go. Yeah. So now we're down to 2. Maybe Steve ran into his power pole with a bus or something.
Yeah, maybe Steve. Yeah, who knows? I don't know. But anyway.
Dennis Roy said he needs to buy a wind turbine to generate some electricity. Yeah, you could do that. What else was being asked up here? Lynn said he does the same thing at swap meets, always looking for something he can use or change into something else.
Well, didn't you buy your Fast Track stuff like on eBay or something? You got a really good deal on it, or maybe it was Bill.
That was Bill.
Yeah.
Bill got a steal on it. He got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I think he got them at one of the train meets.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
one of the train shows. Somebody had it, and I've seen them for sale before, and they usually are cheaper than what you're going to buy them from Fast Tracks.
Yeah. Maybe you'll get lucky if you buy them that way and get tools and track and all the other crap you need.
Dennis must have found some cow patties to throw in the generator. Burn for electricity.
Yeah.
Hey, it is,
I'm this close to a real big rant, so I'm trying to, we lost power yesterday for about 30 minutes.
Are they rolling blackout?
No, not out where he's at.
I have no idea. We cannot keep our digital clocks in our house set because we lose power in this town. I'm not going to say daily, but multiple times a week. And I need to call and say, can you guys give me a rational explanation why we routinely lose power? Because I don't believe it's because there's, too much drain on the system or whatever. It's infuriating.
Might be time for a generator.
It's the guy at the control center leaning against the switch.
I don't know, but
keeps bumping the switch and turning it off.
Yeah, every one of my turnouts changed. I had a train going. Luckily, it was not on any turnouts when it happened, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. Okay, I'm missing stuff in chat here. Okay. Daniel says biggest difference from using a jig and not is that the jig obviously, with the jig, obviously they will all match, but also with a jig, your first turnout works. Without the jig, your first turnout is junk. Well, it can be, yeah, until you learn, even with the jigs, your first turnout or so is probably not going to be real good because you're learning what you have to do to make it good. The one thing I like too about, even after you get one on the layout, you can go in with a soldering iron and adjust a gap or something if you need to. I think a lot of people think once it's on the layout, you can't do anything to it. Well, not necessarily so. It's not as easy as if it's on the bench, but it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yeah, up until the point that you paint it and ballast it, it's very manipulable.
Well, even after you paint it and ballast it, you take a stainless steel brush and brush I've done it. Brush the paint off of it. Now you got to come back and try and paint it, and you don't want to spray paint it like I do mine. You're going to want to have to come back in with a brush or something and kind of do it. But once you get ballast back down on it, not much of the rail shows anyway. So,
Claude, how many turnouts did you say you built?
Me?
Yeah.
More than what I have on the layout. Let's put it that way.
Really?
In fact, I built the right-hand curve turnout that I thought I was going to use. Not a right-hand, left-hand curve turnout that I thought I was going to use on the upper deck and didn't use it. So I've got a perfectly good left-hand narrow gauge turnout, curve turnout that I don't have any use for.
Yeah.
I'll probably give it to Dennis. And I got like 4 pieces of flex track to give you. Narrow gauge, micro engineering.
I just ordered 2 bundles that should arrive Monday.
Well, I've got like four lengths, and I'm not going to use it. I'm done with my track work. So, and I'm not tearing this down and rebuilding. That ain't going to happen.
I've got like probably half a dozen turnouts right now that I've built that are not on the layout for one reason or another.
Yeah.
I built, I think, 3 number 4 turnouts, and even the best one that I've built that is as pristine as I can get, I can't run a K36 through them.
Oh, a K36, no. I can get a K27 through one, but it's got to be going slow.
If it's a Blackstone.
Yeah, Blackstone, but you still got to be going slow. Yeah. Now, the C19s aren't quite as bad, but that number 4 turnout on a narrow gauge is pretty tight divergence. I mean, it swings out there pretty quick, and I've got 2 of them on there. I wish I could, replace with 6s, but I'm not going to tear it up to do that.
Yeah,
so.
That was one of before I built, because I think in my original track plan I had number 4s planned for the inside of my engine yard and frying pan, and so I built 3 of them because I think that's what I needed. I think that's why I have 3 now. Built 3 of them with the idea that I was going to put them in there, tested them, and went, I can't do this. And so they're just over there laying on my scrap bench.
Well, I know I went through 2 or 3 attempts at doing one of the dual gauge diverging turnouts, testing what I could do with it. And I know I've got one in the box in there that's, it's got perfectly good rail on it, except for what I've cut, but it's not going to get used either. You know, so Nathan says, can you buy that surgeon track for narrow and standard gauge in the hobby shop, or do you have to make something no matter what? Are you talking about the transition track on a straight section? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there.
Try again, then, Nathan.
Yeah, clarify that a little bit. Let me scroll down here, see if I can find him. Get down to the bottom of it. And Daniel says, if you just run trains, a number 4 can be a pain in the butt. If you are building an operating layout, 4s add fun in the making you slow down. That's true too, and it depends on your equipment.
That's what I would say. It just depends on your equipment.
Yeah.
Even if you're running diesel equipment, if you're running 4-wheel trucks versus 6-wheel trucks, big difference on what those two will do. 6 wheels do not like. I've got some 6 wheels like a PA1. They don't even like this number 6 turnouts. They would be better with number 8s or bigger.
Wow.
Because they're such a long truck. They don't like that sharp corner. They'll go through it.
If the front of the truck needs to go left while the back of the truck is still going straight ahead, that's where the problem comes in.
Yeah, because the 6-wheel trucks don't swivel normally as much, don't have as much play in them. But anyway, okay, so Nathan didn't clarify yet, did he?
Yeah.
Now Daniel says no, they don't. I'm assuming he's talking about the 6-wheel trucks. Yeah, that's something everybody finds out when they start getting those bigger diesel engines, that they don't like to work on those little number 4 turnouts and stuff. Pathos says, fact, I built my current layout and was running SD9s on it. I tightened one of the curves and had to swap the SDs out for GPs. Exactly.
Yeah. The equipment makes, that's what I did yesterday. That's what will be in my next video, is I test ran my largest standard gauge locomotive to see, one, I tested my dual gauge because I hadn't tested them yet, the turnouts. And the other thing is just to see what radius can I get away with that piece of equipment, with that locomotive. And
yeah, and you know, when you buy a locomotive, they used to all the time tell you what the minimum radius was for that particular model. A lot of them don't do that now, but whatever they tell you on there, you want to up it at least an inch or better than what they tell you, and it'll run so much better. But I've got a 210 a 210-0, I think it's a 210-0 Decapod standard gauge steam engine, and it runs around the layout just fine. It goes through the 6, you know. I'm not even sure what brand it is. I'm sorry?
What's the manufacturer?
I was just going to say, I don't remember what it is. I want to say Bachmann, but I don't know that that's right. I picked it up.
Is it an older model or a newer model?
Yeah, I think it's an older model. I picked it up off eBay.
Talking 70s or are we talking 90s? Because both are older.
No, I don't know. I bought the thing. I tested it when I got it, and I put it on the shelf because I just needed it out of the way, you know. So it's sitting in a box on the shelf. But I also just bought what was that? I think it was a Bachmann. What's their high-end line? Bachmann's high-end line. Spectrum. I just bought a Spectrum, a mountain loco. It's undecorated. It was undecorated, and I wanted a mountain loco, and I'm pretty sure it'll go through. Now it's DC, so I haven't tested it through all the stuff.
What is the mountain? 462?
484, I believe.
484. Okay.
Or 482 or 484. It's one of those. It's 8 drivers. Yeah. Yeah, they were built to go through the mountains. I mean, to haul up the hill and stuff like that. No, they weren't made for
smaller drivers.
I'm sorry?
Smaller drivers.
I,
That's
you know,
the biggest
I want to say no,
really.
but I don't remember. I don't remember right offhand. Man, you can see how
Of
old
course,
I
I don't
am.
know. It depends on your perspective on what smaller is, you know. But
Yeah. Hang on a second, I'll look it up.
there's just a huge difference between, you know, a K27's drivers and say a consolidated standard gauge 240 or even 440. You know, 60 inches versus 48 inches or whatever.
Well, if I could type. There we go. Now maybe I'll get the right thing here. Let's see. Nope, it's not going to get me into that. I'd have to search more. Ah, here we go. The Prairie Pacific Hudson is 464.
The chat is saying it's
284. The Mountain is 482.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tell me
The size of the drivers.
the size of the drivers. So I can find that back here. Decapod, I know the Decapod's drivers are smaller, but I don't think the Mountains are. Well, they're probably smaller. I'm gonna flip this around and show you real quick. That's the picture they show. Can you see that? Okay.
It looks smaller to me, but it's hard to say without.
Yeah, but it's a pretty good sized engine. I mean, it's got a big boiler on it, and of course everything's bigger than the narrow gauge stuff. So, but yeah, you know, I like those size. Okay, now see, Mark says, what did Mark say? Driver size varied within different classifications. That's true too. You can have the same classification and have different driver sizes because of who they sell it to and what terrain they have to get over. I don't know that the smaller drivers would help hauling up a hill or not. They might.
In my opinion, it would, because
you're not turning
you've got a smaller throw.
Yeah.
So you can, the second you're
more torque.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, see, Roy comes up.
Just like changing the sprocket on your bicycle, you know.
See, I think this is Roy's driver sizes. I think that's a personal note right there. But yeah, but going through the turnouts and stuff, the longer the wheel arrangement, the tougher it gets, obviously. And on mine, because my minimum radius is 25 inches on the standard, which is relatively small. That's why I went with the shorter arch roof coaches and stuff like that, because they just look better on the tighter curves.
Yeah.
The longer 85 footers just look, they're swinging way out. You got to watch your clearances on your curves because of the end of the car, and they just don't look that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do like at this end of the railroad. I think I can get away with 22 inches. Anything more than that is going to really get into my aisle space.
Yeah, now, that's on your narrow gauge, though, right?
No,
is that standard
gauge? Yeah, the dual gauge the reverse loop that includes the dual gauge. Yeah.
Well, what are you planning? Are you going to be running trains on the standard?
I want the ability to come from a hidden staging through Leadville, Cloud City, have a dual gauge interchange in there where we got, some kind of platform where you've got standard gauge box cars on one side, narrow gauge box cars on the other side, where we're transferring goods, continue through the time saver, and then off into hidden staging that I'm actually working on now. That's really all I want. So
Yeah. Well,
it should work. So the locomotive that I tested yesterday was a K59, and so it's a 482 because all of Denver and Rio Grande's K series were the Makito. Mikado, whatever. Mikado. I don't know exactly how it's supposed to be pronounced, but
Mikado, whatever it takes.
Depends on who you are and where you live. But I tested it, and so the problem with it is, and I didn't include it in my video. I took the video of it, but the video kind of got long, and I didn't really. It was also kind of disconjointed how I filmed it. But so the issue with it was not the wheels binding. The issue was the trailing truck contacting some of the brass on the frame. So the trailing truck actually picked up electricity because there's a scraper on it. And so depending on whether you're curving to the left or curving to the right, brass on brass, all of a sudden you've got a dead short because you're contacting the frame. So I took that off. I put in a fiberglass washer so that the trailing truck no longer conducts electricity. And then that solved that problem. But then so you've got two holes on your drawbar. On the closer hole, the top of the cab barely touched the top of the tender. So put it in the further hole in the drawbar, and it'll take an 18-inch radius curve.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, one solution.
He imports brass.
One solution to the trailing truck might be some like liquid electrical tape.
I'll look at that when I
paint it on the inside of down there where it's touching, not on the truck itself, but on the body of the cab where it's touching.
Yeah.
Now you would have to go back
that it's contacting.
Yeah, you might have to go back and redo it at some point because it may wear after a while if you run it a bunch, but you're probably not going to be running it that much that it would wear out fast. That stuff's pretty fast.
I've got a similar issue with my Mountain Models Imports 461, the green one that looks the best. On a left-hand turn, like as it's coming through here on that sharp left-hand curve, something is causing a short. I have not been able to find it. It doesn't do it coming around the other direction. So it's just one of those weird things. I thought it was the pilot truck. Now I'm not so sure, and I need to do some testing on it and figure out what's going on because it will short circuit every time right there.
Well, I'd put it upside down in a cradle and put power to the wheels and then play with the trailing and the pilot truck and the trailing truck and see
I just
can recreate that.
Just haven't taken the time to do it.
Well, and most of the models, I know Blackstones do them, but all the drivers will go back and slide back and forth a little bit. Sometimes that causes a problem with your driver rods, stuff like that. But I know
it's causing a direct short. It's definitely shorting out. Something is shorting out on the frame, I believe, is what I think's going on. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Would Kapton tape work too?
I put Kapton tape all up underneath the bottom side of the pilot because that's what I initially thought it was, and it didn't change.
You might as well, man. Oh, thank you, Bernard. That made me laugh. Now I can't see. Okay. That's probably the rail going in that one direction. Yeah, that could be.
The rail.
Okay, here's a previous.
I don't really understand.
The taller wheel, the more slip going up hills and curves. Okay. He was just talking about what we were talking about before in the wheel arrangement. Yeah, and Path Valley said maybe a thin piece of styrene over that. Yeah, that would last longer than the liquid tape. I was suggesting the liquid electrical tape because it'd be easy to get on there. It's black, so if you've got a black locomotive, it's not going to show very much. And the only thing is, it's not a real solid material, so it could wear out, I guess. It's not made for that, but I would think it would work.
Well, the thing is diagnosing where it's touching. I haven't been able to diagnose where it's touching. I know there's all kinds of different ways that you could address the problem. I just haven't located the exact place where it's touching.
Yeah. Well, seeing if you put it upside down in the cradle too, those trucks, the pilot truck and trailer truck are going to want to cross.
They fall down. So
Yeah.
you really can't assess what's going on.
Well, just prop them up and test them individually, but keep one up.
How do you know exactly the radius? I guess you could just say, well, if it's touching, this is where it would be touching.
Yeah. That at least give you a place to start on it, and then you can take maybe some corrective action on that and test it again on the track and see if that takes it, does it. But especially if it's in that one spot. Didn't you have a problem with the track nails and stuff like that early on in the staging yard there behind you?
I think I had
sorting out stuff.
I think the 482 has a little bitty screw that I think got put in by somebody else years ago. Who knows? I don't think it's factory, but it hangs down further than what should be hanging down. And so in certain places that, especially if you've got any kind of non-flat, if there's any roughness at all, that screw as it comes through can contact the head of another rail or come close enough that it might cause a short circuit.
And that's on that 461?
No, that's on the 482. The 461, the only issue I ever had with it is the trailing truck. There's little bitty manufactured, I guess, bolts on the bottom of the frame, and they hang down just far enough that, again, if you're on rough track, that they might contact something.
Yeah.
And so I filed those off.
Roy says you're probably causing the power outage. You need to stop running more than one steam loco at a time.
I've only got one going this morning.
Straining the grid. Chuck says, what about using plastic dip used for tools? I've used that on tools before. Yeah, and that's pretty durable. But even liquid tape, I would think would work. I don't think you'd wear it out unless you were just running it every day in and out.
Yeah,
Where you're constantly hitting against it. That would wear it out. But if it's just every once in a while that you're running it, shouldn't take much. Here we go. The rail might be dirty on that one side, or a wire might be touching the track from one of the cars. Maybe a screw is touching the track. Yeah.
How would dirty rail cause a short circuit?
Yeah, it wouldn't cause. Well, he's thinking just stopping it. The loco stopping could be dirty track.
It's not. I'm getting a dead short. It's not that it's stopping. I'm getting a dead short.
Lower hanging nuts, yeah. Okay, Bernard. He says he can't type. Right. I think he meant that. Yeah, and Kapton tape thinner. Well, you tried that on the one, didn't you? Did it work okay?
Well, I've got Kapton tape underneath the pilot, and that's just it. I cannot determine where it's touching.
Yeah.
Tape around the screws.
That's aggravating when you.
Yeah, I mean, I know how to fix it. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly where I need to put the tape or the plastic or whatever it is that's going to stop the short. I just have to
it's finding the spot first, and then you can decide how to fix it. But yeah, that would be a weird one there. But you know, it's all the shorts that I've had after I did something, and they had me scratching my head, and I'd leave them for a while, and I'd come back to them, and I'd usually find them right away because I was overthinking stuff, you know, thinking, oh, it had to be this or it had to be that, and then you come back and you go, well, it's stupid, you didn't gap that one tie on that new set of track. You know, you thought you did, but you didn't. You know, stuff like that. It was always something simple.
For me, it's always the throw out bar. I never gap the throw out bar before I solder it in. Mostly because I want to make sure that I know where I'm going to drill the hole for the tortoise, and then I just completely forget about it. And then that's the first thing when it short circuits, I go, oh, and that's usually what it is.
Yeah, but I started putting like a standard gauge throw out on mine, so it was wider.
It's a good idea
for doing the hole. But I also put them on the outside of the turnout. I'm not as crazy about putting it in the center between the rails, and it works just as well over the side.
What's your rationale? Just out of curiosity.
It just keeps it out from the center of the track. Because if you come back in and you're trying to clean it, even if you're using a cloth or something, or you're using a bright boy, it doesn't matter what you're using, always hitting that one between the rails. I even have to be careful with the ones out on the side because, you know,
what do you mean you're hitting it?
Say again?
What do you mean you're hitting it? What are you hitting?
The wire sticking out. Because if it's in between the rails, now I could cut it down shorter, but I never want to get it down so short that it could slide out, because I've had that happen before.
Yeah, see, I use a template. I put it over the top, and then I slide it as far to the left as I can. Then I use flush cutters, and then so I've cut it, because the flush cutters don't actually get it flushed with the throw out bar. It's so far beneath the head of the rail that's not an issue.
Yeah. Well, mine don't stick up, and I'm going to go back in and trim those down once I get everything back in, you know, in for sure. But I've gone to where I've thrown it over to one side because I've bought a bunch of those Chemtron. I think it's Chemtron. May not, maybe something else. But they're the brass harp throws indicators for the harp switch, you know, harp switch.
Oh, okay. For harp switches, gotcha.
And the brass ones, they make plastic ones and brass ones. Well, the brass ones, you can actually set them up so they'll actually work with the throw bar. And
What do they look like?
I haven't bought a bunch of those yet. I need to look into that.
Yeah, and they're not cheap. They're between $5 and $10 depending on where you get them.
Each?
Yeah, they're not cheap. But I've got, you know, and I'd buy one here, buy one there.
Do they look really good though?
Do what?
Do they look really good though?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, you can get on YouTube and see where people have used them.
I'll have to look one up.
Yeah, that's really cool because you get a pretty good indication. You know, some people have the light or the one that turns. You could do those too, but the harp switches you can see really, really well. I'd like those, especially on the upper deck that I just finished. I don't know if we'll ever get around to it because it's not, you know, it's fairly tedious to do it, but that was one of those.
I've got some, but I can't remember who the manufacturer is, but I think they will also throw if you work them out right.
Yeah.
So
well, the brass ones on these come with the wire and everything to hook into your throw bar and everything, so that they will move when you throw the switch. But it will give you a visual confirmation of which way that switch is thrown just by looking at the layout instead of looking at your control panel or whatever.
I just push a button.
You're doing all the work
I
now,
don't
so you
concern
be lazy
myself
later.
with the turnout at all anywhere except Silver Gulch. They would be handy in Silver Gulch for that purpose, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I figured for the upper deck because it's going to be, upper deck for me is just below my eye level. And so it's hard to see which way they're thrown. But if I've got something sticking up, I can see that right away. And so that was my reasoning.
And you've got no
Plus,
feedback on the panel at all to tell you which way they're thrown?
Yeah, because on the upper
if that
deck,
were me, I would have derailments every time I tried to operate.
oh, I'm sure I'll have derailments. That's goes with the territory. But no, I'm using the touch toggles, and on the upper deck, most of them are going to be the recessed in to the fascia. They're not going to be on a panel. So at least that's the plan. I may change that.
To its relative location to the actual turnout.
Yeah, well, they will be. Yeah. Now my three-way on the lead coming in. That one will have to have a small one, kind of like I did the Y at the summit. I'll use a piece of plexiglass and put the touch toggles behind that. So you can see which route you're taking, and then the same thing on the Y within the yard, the turning Y. I'll do the same thing there because those take 3 lights each. So
I got a question.
Sure.
For everybody. Does anybody make operating HO switch cams?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Does anybody here have them? Anybody in chat have them on their layout?
I don't have any HO scale. Well, now
the harp stand would be HO scale.
Yeah, it's HO scale.
Harp is a design, right? It's a style, right?
Okay. Yeah, the base of it comes up off of the wood around the throw bar, and it's shaped like this with a kind of a crescent here, and that's where it gets its name. And then the indicator bar is up like this, going back and forth, depending on which way it's thrown.
Yeah,
it's not a turning one, but I think I've seen some of the Target turnouts that operate also.
Okay.
In fact, I know I have.
I don't like Jack Rex's caboose. I don't like the caboose industry one.
I don't either.
They're too big.
Yeah.
They look funky.
Yeah, I started to use one of those on the little mine that I have at the bottom of the mountain. I'm not sure if I had that in when you were here, Dennis. You know where the curve is, where it starts to go up that trestle, up the mountain? Okay. I put a mine in right down there, and I built a stub switch for that. And that's my only manual. And I started to do a caboose one, and it wasn't strong enough to do a number 4 stub switch, because I did a number 4 stub switch on it. And it wasn't strong enough to hold it over because it was plastic. And so it was wearing that cam out. And so I ended up going in and building one basically. Actually, I used one from Fast Tracks, one of the
Bullfrog.
Bullfrog.
Is that what they're called?
I had bought one just because I was curious, and I put it together, and I thought, well, this worked pretty good. And it's got a switch on it, micro switch on it to change your polarity for your frog. And so I did that, and then just put a manual push-pull in the fascia over the other ones. But I know a lot of people use those caboose ones.
All right.
I'm crazy not to luck either, but
before it ends, I told you last week I was going to show you what I came up with. So I'm going to drop out of here, go to my phone, and go in the other room. All right?
Okay.
Yeah, we're so used to you
not
having anything to show us, we forget to ask. I absolutely want to see what Jerry's up to.
Yeah. He never offers to show us anything. So
yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to see that. Let's see. Bernard says, what did Bernard say? I use liquid electric tape a lot on a lot of little issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone, who was it? Path Valley Railroad says that his pilot truck was hitting the cylinders. That's the first thing that I thought was going on with it. and that's where my Kapton tape is. Now, I guess maybe it's possible that I need to look at it and see if some of it's come off or something.
Jack, I said, you check the wheel set to see if they're out of gauge.
Everything appears to be in gauge, which I don't know, not being, even if it was a little out of gauge, I don't know why that would cause a direct short. It has to be touching the frame somewhere.
He wants to see that part of the track that you're having the problem.
I can do that real quick, probably, unless Jerry pops back in.
No, he's
We've got
here.
5 minutes. We'll let
Okay.
go ahead and make Jerry big, and then
Just a second, Jerry.
All right.
No, make Jerry big.
Make Jerry
Ready.
big. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
All right. So I came up with 2 designs. Same basic. The only thing difference is the distance between. I didn't like this first design because it was too not tall enough. So this is what I'm going to wind up doing, and it's 19 inches between the deck and the bottom of the fascia here, the bottom of the upper valance. So basically, what it is this P, right? This is it here, right? 18 inches this way, 18 inches that way, and 20 inches this way. And this little notch will be in all of them like that. And then there'll be a 1x3 that continues and ties them all together.
Yeah.
Same thing for the front. It'll be in the front, maybe not like a 1x3, but it'll tie them all together. And then I can put my lighting up in under there and put something on top here, like masonite or something to store stuff up there if I wanted to. So that's basically what I came up with. And these will be out of 3/4 inch Baltic birch ply. A lot of waste, but it'll be strong. I don't care about the waste.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you if you were going to attach those to the wall at the top, but
No.
putting a cleat up there along the wall, I can see what you're doing now.
Yeah, so they'll all be attached here with a 1x3 going all the way down.
Yeah.
So I'm not
That's
attaching
what
this
that
at all
notch
to
is
my
for.
wall. What's that?
That's what that notch is for, is the 1x3?
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And you can make that any size you wanted, you know. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I'm pretty so I'll attach it down here, like run some screws in here. And I think it'll be rigid enough to support some 1/8 inch material here and just some ribbon lighting underneath, you know. And then my backdrop will be in here. And what I plan to do is make a little notch down here and at the top. And my backdrop, my plan is going to slide in. It'll slide in like this. You know what I mean?
Well, are you planning on moving that light switch?
No, that light switch doesn't do anything. It,
Okay.
I mean, it does, but it just controls an outlet, and I control that outlet with a smart switch. So,
Okay.
Cool.
yeah,
There you go.
that's it.
Hey, so this locomotive that I've got going right now is getting ready to go through the very bend that we're curious about. This is not the locomotive that has the problems, but you'll get a good idea of the radius. I don't know what the actual radius is. I just knew that it was less than 18, so I went with it. But right about here, which I think is the sharpest part, is where it short circuits. So, I mean, it's not the track. I mean, the track doesn't have anything. It's just the fact that there's a bend in. What's going on there? See, that's how I know it's a dead short, because that's what it's doing. That's never happened before. Of course, that's the MP1. I don't like those as much as tortoises, just personally. Nothing really wrong with them, but I like the fact that the tortoise keeps going and keeps constant pressure. That shuts off. But
Yeah. Yeah, stall switches are nice.
yeah.
That sounds like a reverse loop or a reversing switch. I know I've got one up in
I
my
think
upper
what
deck.
happened was I forgot to push. The button after all of my tortoises reset, so I was coming back in on the wrong route for some reason. This is either, it doesn't include Route 5, but if this home's position is Route 5 and I hadn't pushed Route 5 on the button, then that kind of changes things.
Well, is the 461 the one you're having trouble with? Is that a brass locomotive?
It's Mountain Model Imports, so it's a brass hybrid.
Hybrid, okay.
I think it's got as much die cast on it as it does brass. I think the boiler and all that. I think it's I think it's die cast, but I think the additional detail parts on it I think are brass. I've never really researched what is and what isn't brass on it. It's not quite as heavy as I would like it to be. It doesn't pull as much as a Blackstone, which I think is odd. I've never weighed the two against each other, but
I found some a video on making the Blackstones heavier so they pull better.
yeah.
And it's a heavy putty material.
Where do you put it?
He put it up. I want to say he put it over trying to get over the drivers, but he put some behind the cylinders. Now, I don't remember what radius he's running on or anything like that, so you have to be careful there if you're tight radius. If you put it somewhere where your pilot trucks would be moving back and forth. And I don't remember if I even saved that or not. But it's almost like a tungsten putty or something like that. But you put it under and it stays put, and he really liked it, and it really made a difference on his.
I'll have to look into that.
His Blackstone. So it would help with the mountain models too, if you can figure out where the short is.
Yeah, I will. I just I'm not running enough to really care that much about it, so I'm concentrating on building.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's maybe an insulator on one of the drivers or something, that when it slides over, because it's going around, if they slide back and forth very much, if it's sliding over far enough to short out or something.
I'll have to take a look, because there's other places. There's another place on Silver Gulch that is just as sharp as this, and it doesn't seem to happen there. But maybe it's not as sharp, and I just think it is. I don't know.
Well,
that's a good idea that it could be.
Yeah, we're 4 minutes over, so we got to get out of here, guys. Everybody in chat, thanks for being here, and have a good weekend and a good week, and we'll see you next week. And Jerry and Dennis, thanks for being here. And Steve, be careful on the road, dude. And Bill, like I say, was partying, so as long as he didn't party too hardy today, maybe he'll be back next week. Anyway, have a good rest of your weekend. We'll see you next week.
Yep.